What's happening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Thank you for coming over to the DFS 5-pack to talk a little NBA DFS for what is today, the 19th of January. And I wanted to give you credit on something. Yesterday, you said when we were breaking down these slates that you liked the day slate way more than the night slate. And as I was putting together like my portion of the write-up for the night slate, I'm like, damn, Bellman is right on this because I hate this night slate. It is a good day to not even play it and just watch the Bucks Nets, who gave us a great game. I couldn't pick out players from that night slate last night I had any desire to put in my roster.
Yeah, I felt similarly, obviously, but then it kind of got turned on its head once we got the Heat Pistons news. Ended up not affecting us, but I know that I messaged you about that, and you're like, withdraw. Like, I was like, what are you going to do about this? And you're like, withdraw entry, LOL. I was thinking the same thing. All my contests were full, though, so there was no choice. I had no options.
But at least there was good plays on the early slate, right? Like even with just the two games, if you didn't count the later one, like there was still I had guys that weren't on my roster I would have liked to play. Like in the night slate, like I had to look at guys I had zero interest in putting in my lineup and actually recommend them. So it was ugly and dirty. Today isn't the sexiest of all slates because we only have the two games, but I got more plays on this two-game slate than I had in last night's.
Agreed.
So even from a long shot one, I think we got a few long shots on today's show I'm excited to talk about that I like those more than some of the guys I played in my lineup last night.
Same and same.
All right, guys. So daily promotions, I got a couple of good ones. And listen up, and then we'll move into today's plays. First off, we talked about this last week, and I brought it up on slates that were lower viewed slates. So we couldn't get to the likes that were required. So today I also feel it would be a slightly lower viewed slate because it's only two games. But if we can do the 150 likes today, which is 50 less than the normal 200 required to give away the free stuff, give away a free NBA package on the show tomorrow. So all you got to do is slide your finger over the thumbs up button. We can get 150 of those today, which is on the low end. We'll give away that free NBA package tomorrow, and then hopefully we can move on to more giveaways. Also, one of the better deals that we can offer is the $50 rebate on the annual memberships today. So annual membership is typically $200, but we do a $50 rebate on an annual membership today, which means it's $150 for the full year. That breaks down to just over $13, no, less than $13 a month, which is just a great price. You get all three sports we cover, every video, every updates, every write-up, and everything like that. Baseball, basketball, football, we are ready to rock.
Can't beat the deals, and I'm excited to break this slate down with you, brother.
Let's do it, man. Subscribe to the station if you're new to it. We will stick with the new format for this year. Let's start with today's cash game lock. And quite frankly, this might be the easiest cash game lock of the year at least from a stud perspective. Obviously we're going to get some filler in guys, a 3,400 point guard that's just you can't leave alone. But from a stud perspective on a two-game slate, I think you start with Jokic, right? You just put him in your lineup, and you don't even think twice if you're playing cash games.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with that. I didn't think about it like that, but of any slate this year, there might not be a bigger cash game lock as far as studs go. Like you said, the cheap guys are filler pieces. When you got a starting point guard at 3K or whatever, those guys are going to be very, very chalky as well. But as far as a guy like 11K, that's a lot in cash games. You won't see a bigger one than Jokic here.
He's the best player on this slate by 18 DraftKings points per game. I want you to really, really think about that discrepancy. So, like the next highest priced guys, I think, are Brandon Ingram and Shai. Like he outscores Shai by almost 20 a game and Ingram by 18 points a game. Doesn't mean that's the way tonight necessarily works out, but you can't, automatically just view it differently. Maybe you think this game's get out of hand. And if you're going to fade Jokic, my friend, get out of cash games tonight and go play GPPs. I mean, there are two types of formats you can roll on here. He's a tough fade even in tournaments, but if you're fading him, play GPPs tonight. The Thunder interior defense without Big Al Horford around is a joke. Like they have no way to check this dude. He's a lock a lot of different slates that you play him on. Just on his consistency, his upside. I think he's still leading the NBA in assists this year. He averages a triple-double, 25, 11, and 10. He averages 61 DK points per game. To me, this is one of the easier stud cash game locks you will find all season long. And it helps that it's only a two-game slate. But, again, if you're fading him, go play tournaments, my friend.
Like you said, even in tournaments, it's a really risky fade. In cash games, in tournaments, it's a risky fade. In cash games, it's a stupid fade. You're not getting any benefits, really, of fading him in cash games because getting to the mountaintop doesn't mean anything. So, yeah, in tournaments, it's risky, but at least you can make the case for it. In cash, there isn't another stud on here that you can, make the case to fade Jokic for.
I mean, Brandon Ingram's the next most expensive guy, and he is overpriced today. Jokic by his points per game in this season is still massively underpriced. He's averaging 61 DK points per game. If he just hit his average tonight, he would be a good play on a main slate.
Sometimes we have this where guys are just like free squares, and he's a free square. Well, a free square, maybe not the operative term, but it kind of is at 11K in cash games because people are just going to use him. He's going to be 80 to 90% owned. He's not going to be the reason you win. He's not going to be the reason you lose. You just have to play him in cash games.
Well, he could be the reason you lose if you don't play him, which is essentially what we're saying. And now we'll move on because we all know how good this dude is. A guy that's your GPP play today is a dude that we almost kind of stumbled upon because he's kind of been like a no-show for the Thunder for the majority of the year. But if y'all remember Kenrich Williams from the Pelicans, like this guy's had good DFS games before.
Yeah, I love plays like this on a 2-game slate. Guys that are kind of falling under the radar for no real reason. You know, like you said, he hadn't played a huge run for the Thunder except for the past couple games. But you've seen the past couple games, he's played 25-plus minutes. He's a guy, as you mentioned again, that when he's out there, he's not going to fill up the stat sheet, but he's not standing around doing nothing. He'll get his DFS points, which is, you know, obviously seen by his past couple games where he's got 25-plus. He's getting next to no love here. I am of the opinion that this game could get out of hand for OKC. Denver's just a much better team. Bad spot for OKC against a Nuggets team coming off a loss to the Jazz. Either way, I think Kenrich Williams sees his 20 to 25 minutes that he's been playing the past couple games. I have no way of knowing that, but on slates like this, you kind of have to, you know, take a little bit of a risk, especially when you're looking to spend down. And here, I just think he works, man. Again, on a slate where a lot of guys are getting a ton of ownership that maybe they don't deserve. He's the opposite of that.
I would say that it's, you know, it is a little bit of a riskier play in the sense that he has not had a big part in the rotation. And he is coming off back-to-back. I believe it's 25 point per games. And I think he did last game he played in the 20s, but I think he was actually in the teens the game before for his number of minutes. But he played really, really well in that game. And what else does OKC have? Outside of Shai, with Horford out of the lineup, like, who are these other guys you're building your team around? Like, we like Dort from a defensive perspective, and Baisley has his moments. Diallo can look good from time to time. George Hill is, you know, a solid NBA player. But, like, what else are they working with right here? The Thunder are a good team to experiment with these, like, you know, players like Kenrich Williams, who's played really, really well the last couple of games. And with Horford out tonight, you know, they got to fill in with some of these, you know, decently sized forwards to try to, you know, spread those minutes out and things like that. I like him tonight, too. I'm scared while playing, but that's why he's a GPP play, not a cash game play necessarily, because he could go back to playing 5 minutes or no minutes. It's possible. I would expect, though, that they would take a look at a guy who's been on fire from the field the last 2 games, has been participating in a variety of different statistical categories, knowing that, like, he's not an old man. Like, if this game does get blowouty, George Hill and Mike Muscala are the dudes sitting on the bench in the fourth quarter because there's no reason to really give him bigger minutes and maybe play around with some of these younger guys and give him extra minutes. So while you can't guarantee a blowout, I'm with you. I think the most likely blowout scenario tonight is Denver versus OKC. This could help him. If the game is competitive, I still think there's a good opportunity for him to see his minutes. He's 3,600 at the small forward position, which, like most slates, is typically a weaker position. So if you're going to pay down, you love being able to do it at the 3 as opposed to like with a point guard or a center.
Yeah, amen to all that stuff. We see this very much eye to eye. I was a little bit upset I didn't play him last time, but I wasn't buying the minutes that he got in the blowout. And again, we don't know that this is going to continue, but I think that's the reason he's not getting any love. So on a slate like this, I'm willing to take that chance. Now, if you saw him as like the chalkiest player on the slate, then I'd be looking to maybe fade that.
Yeah, because there's other cheap,
yes,
more popular plays on the slate. And we're going to bring up a couple of cheap guys on this one because I think like some of the good plays are pretty obvious today. And we want to just, we're going to get into one of them right now, in our opinion, is a really easy, good play. But then we got a couple of like long shots that we're going to have fun discussing. So cover boy for the day, Mike Conley. I'm with you. We see this one eye to eye as well. I like him more than Shai today. 1, he's almost 2K cheaper. 2, like Shai is, like if I was playing for 50 DK points, yeah, I'd probably rather roster Shai, but we came to the same conclusion on this one. Not only do we like Mike Conley better for points per dollar today, I wouldn't be flabbergasted if he outscores Shai straight up today. And Shai, I think, 1, will be a little bit more popular than Mike Conley. I still think people look at like Donovan Mitchell and know that he's the best backcourt player for the Utah Jazz and struggle to force guys like Conley and Jordan Clarkson into their lineup. But Mike Conley is playing awesome right now. and he's got 32 plus DK points in 5 straight games. One, this isn't like an aberration either. We know Mike Conley is a very good NBA player. You know, he had some growing pains with the Jazz last year, but he really seems to have settled into his role. Donovan Mitchell isn't forcing himself to be a one-man wrecking crew this year. They're spreading the ball out. Bogey's taking his threes. Gobert's getting his putbacks. Clarkson's coming in off the bench and shooting 15 times a game. Conley's distributing the ball really, really well. He's spreading it out. I just expect another 30-plus point performance from him, and I think he's a solid play in all formats today.
Same, and again, on a slate where you see a lot of guys overpriced, again, he isn't one of them. So while that 35 might not be amazing for a slate with 10 games, we don't have 10 games. So I think that he's a really solid look in all formats, like you said. Very affordable. He's not like a cheap fill-in guy, and he changes your roster construction a little bit. But in a game that I like much more than the other, I like Conley a lot here.
That was the other point. You kind of mentioned it when we were talking about Kenrich Williams. If there was a blowout today, I think the most likely blowout would be Denver coming off of a loss at home against an OKC Thunder team that just isn't that good, right? I'm a big Shy fan, but they're not that good.
They're by far the worst team on this slate. I mean, listen, Denver is definitely the best team on this slate, and OKC is definitely the worst team on this slate.
Yeah, and there's a reason that game has the highest point discrepancy. I know it's only between two of them, but it's a few points higher for a reason. That's the game I could see getting blowouty. So that's one of the reasons we like Conley over Shy today. Even in cash games where I expect Shy to be more popular, I still rather play Mike Conley. And we were all over Shy last slate because we thought it was a great spot for him against the Chicago Bulls. Then he got the OT run to go from good to great. This is not the same type of scenario. I view this a lot more like the previous 2 games when I had zero interest in rostering Shy. And the only reason he's even more rosterable to me today is because it's a 2-game slate.
Yeah, and honestly, like the 2K is big.
Yeah. I mean, think about the upgrade you get to make in a situation like that. That's, one really decent, better player or maybe 2 different positions where you can upgrade players.
For sizzle.
All right, so let's move over into the long shots for the day. And these are kind of more fun to talk about on a big slate or a small slate like this because these are the places not everybody's going to go. So take a look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they got another cheap power forward in Roby, who's going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate. But I'm going to look at Pokusevski for a second. And the reason being is, well, one, he's just going to go virtually unowned today because you probably don't need the salary, right?
Agreed.
People are going to go down to Roby. You got plenty of cap relief there.
You're going to see the ownership concentrated on like the same cheap guys. Like, you know what I mean? Whoever it is, whether it's Roby, JaMychal Green, those guys are going to get a lot of love. And the other cheap guys are going to, fall out of favor with everyone.
Right. So this is a great spot to be contrarian because you're not I don't think Roby's like a smash play. I think he's a solid play and he'll make my cash game lineup, but I don't expect Roby to go out and put up 40 tonight or anything like that.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the reason why I think it makes a lot of sense is because it's Isaiah freaking Roby. I mean, any game he could have 10 to 15 DK points and no one's surprised because who knows if he's going to be in the NBA next year.
Also, would you be shocked if he picked up 2 quick ones trying to check Jokic?
No, and then what happens if that happens and then Pokusevski comes in and plays real well? Why wouldn't they want to give him a little extra run?
Yeah, and he's aggressive when he's out there, and he puts up DFS points in a hurry.
We saw in preseason when he was out there, he was putting up a ton of DFS points.
Now, does this make him a great NBA player? Hell no. But there's a difference between it, and the guy we're going to bring up next is the same thing. Mm-hmm. When they're on the court, they're aggressive, they're assertive, and they put up points in a hurry. Pokusevski's 3,200 at the power forward position. Why I wouldn't make a straight-up bet for him to outscore Isaiah Roby, I think that would be a foolish bet. I don't think it's out of the question. He's less expensive, and he's significantly lower owned.
I think that's, we talk about this in baseball a lot. I mean, Roby's going to be, 20 times his high owned? 20, I don't know exactly what Pokusevski is going to come in, but 30 times his high owned maybe? Is Roby 30 times more likely to outscore Pokusevski here? I don't think so.
No, especially if you're playing under the notion that this game could get out of hand. Roby's not the first guy to come off the court if the game gets out of hand, but we have seen him start for Al Horford a couple times this year, and I think at least twice those games got out of hand, if my memory serves me correct. Maybe it was only once. And he was not on the court for the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. So, it was more guys like Pokusevski, you got extended run right there. So I think it's an interesting GPP pivot. It's not your cash game guy. If you're just making your best optimal lineup of the day, he shouldn't be in it. But if you're trying to get different with it And this reminds me a lot of like a 2-game baseball slate.
Yeah,
In
same.
a sense where like you can leave money on the table. I'm never going to bet, Brian Goodwin to outscore Mike Trout on a consistent basis, but I only need him to outscore him today. And while Mike Trout's the greatest baseball player outside of maybe Barry Bonds that I've ever seen, he doesn't put up 15, 20 every day because it's a little bit different. Well, the same thing goes with like a Pokashevsky over a Roby. Also, you could play them together hypothetically as well.
The difference in baseball is that like Pokashevsky could outscore Trout on any given day. Like we're not saying use Pokashevsky over Jokic.
Yeah, exactly. You're just in this situation. It's not crazy to think he could outscore Roby
Right.
at 3% ownership versus 70% ownership.
I mean, the other thing is like it's not inconceivable that both these guys aren't very good. Like, is it crazy to think Roby has 14 and Pokashevsky has 12? Not at all.
No, and in which case it just doesn't matter except you get an extra $1,000 to spend.
Exactly. You'd rather have Pokashevsky in that scenario as well.
All right. Next up, another guy that, your long shot of the day that puts up DFS points in a hurry when given the opportunity, and that's Jackson Hayes of the New Orleans Pelicans. And I wasn't thinking about him except for the fact that, I watched most of the Pelicans-Kings game the other night. And when he's out there, it was a nice reminder that when he's given ample opportunity to play, he puts up points fast. He's ultra aggressive. He's very assertive. He just needs playing time.
Yeah, man. Kenrich Williams and Hayes are two guys you briefly mentioned on the members only video that really just stuck out to me. Guys that I've watched a little bit recently. I watched a bunch of that Sacramento New Orleans game too. He looked good on the court. He's back in the rotation, backing up Steven Adams. He's been playing 18 to 20 minutes. There's scenarios for him to play more. And again, like you mentioned, this is a guy, a typical center that he just gets points when he's out there. He's a good rebounder. He can score from in close. He blocks shots. At 3,300 at no ownership, I mean, even in just 20 minutes, he could easily get 8x here. And if he plays more, the upside's obviously much higher.
So there are scenarios where you can see him play extended minutes, which I mentioned at the end. Blowout. I'm not calling for this game to be a blowout, but it could be. New Orleans is erratic, and Utah's a good team. I mean, also, New Orleans could hit a bunch of threes, and they could go the other way. It's not the most likely scenario, but it's plausible because we've seen blowouts all year in the NBA, too. Adams gets in easy foul trouble. Okay, again, I'm not calling for that because, as I mentioned in the members-only video, Steven Adams is pretty good about staying out of foul trouble. But we've also seen guys, pick up 2 quick ones. Picks up one on the first play of the game, and then they just get into his body, and he picks up a second one. The next thing 4 minutes into the game, he's out, and here comes Jackson Hayes. Jackson Hayes is capable of playing well, and we've seen him in the past. He's erratic, but when he's out there, he's aggressive, he's an assertive. He's a young guy that they still kind of like in New Orleans. But the addition of Steven Adams, who's just a more polished NBA center, has made it difficult for him to see playing time consistently. If he plays well, maybe they give him some extended run. He's a guy that could 10x today, but playing 18 minutes. He doesn't need to play 40 minutes to hit value here. He's 3,300. The ownership of Jokic makes every other center low owned today. And he's a guy that at virtually no ownership, he can be the one different play you make today. And that's all you would need to separate yourself from the pack.
I was thinking about that with Pokashevsky, and the same thing applies here. And for me, this doesn't matter because it's a 1-game sample size, but there's a reason that he was a top 10 pick last year. He's athletic as hell. He's a really good rim runner. If he's ever in a position where Adams is out, and especially if Zion was out or something, he would be a lock at this price. He'd be the most popular player on the slate. So obviously that's not the scenario here, but as you just mentioned, 25 to 30 TK points in 18 minutes isn't crazy at all because he can block shots and get rebounds that quickly.
He's got Chris Boucher type of DFS upside when he's given the opportunity. Now, he doesn't hit threes like him, but he does a lot of things that can be rewarded. You just need him to get playing time. He's got Enes Kanter type of points when he's out there. You just need him to get out there, and they've been giving him run lately. So there's a good chance he could just meander into 15, 20 points and be fine. But if one of those things happens where he gets extended run, he could be the reason you win real big money tonight.
It's also not crazy to think that 15 to 20 outscores some other more popular cheap guys.
It's very plausible. So there's a variety of ways it could work. And again, you're going to get him at very low ownership. Jokic is going to be 85, 90% in cash games, maybe more. And in GPPs, he's still going to be 60%, 70%?
Yeah. And then you got Gobert, no one's looking to play Hayes here, I don't think. I mean, I would expect he's under 5% owned, which on a 2-game slate is big time leverage.
Yeah, and a 2-game slate, like you guys don't have to be like crazy different because you're not looking to outscore 8 other players and 8 other games or anything like that. Like you are just looking for that 1, maybe 2 guys that are pretty low owned, that aren't on a lot of people's rosters, that can separate you from the pack. And like I wouldn't play Kenrich Williams, Pokashevsky, and Hayes together because it's a very good likelihood that like one of these guys at least is going to be horrible. But playing 1 or 2 of them and taking a little risk it for the biscuit right there. Like I might play a variety of these guys tonight, depending on how many lineups I run out there. But you don't have to be like so different. If you play Jackson Hayes alone, you're already different than almost everybody else on the slate.
I agree. 3 of them is a little much. 2 of them is fine for me. 3 of them is a little bit much.
Which goes back into the history of where the name the 5-pack comes from. And it comes from building a centralized core of good plays for your NBA lineups and then getting a little riskier with your remaining plays. And this stems from like 5 or 6 years ago. And I was looking through GPP winners one night, and I noticed like the same guy had 3 top 10 finishes, and all he did was he built a core of like 6 really, really good plays, and they happened to work out for the night. But then he took chances on the other 2, and when a guy like Hayes hits and your core is solid, that's all you need to get to the mountaintop.
Yeah, if you have one guy in your core, like I'm thinking about that night, Brad Beal went for like 80-some DK points at really low owned. All of a sudden, if he's in your core, and you make 5 lineups like that and you mix up your other pieces, chances are you're going to be having a good night.
Yeah, you get the Hayes pick or the Pokashevsky hit right in one of those other 5 lineups, and all of a sudden, boom, GPP
You're winning. You're winning a GPP. Exactly.
So, all right, guys, that was some fun to talk about today. We're going to drop NFL information for the weekend today for the public. Go Packers.
Let's get it, man.